Good afternoon, George here. Okay, firstly, please excuse me. I'm a bit unwell, as you might hear, so just bear with me today. Um, Thank you so much for joining us for another whatever this is talk. I don't know what to call this, so it's a whatever it is. Um, Now I've got this very special guest, but before I introduce my guest for today, I just need to mention something. It has come to my attention that people think my videos are out to get them, or it's aimed at somebody specific or something like that. I just want to assure everybody these videos are educational. It's for educational purposes only. It's not aimed at anybody specific, not at all. There's a place for everybody, so if you feel offended by my videos, I'm really sorry. It's not the intention. So having said that, if you still feel it's aimed at you, I've got a very easy solution. I feel like I'm giving free advice today. So next to your keyboard should be a thing like this. There's a little wheel there. If you turn that wheel, you'll see my video or post will disappear as if by magic. Somebody else's post will be there or appear. You're more than welcome to read that new post. But yeah, as I said, it's not aimed at anybody in specific. Also, this is not a Cope event at all. It's a George Van Eisten event, so it's got nothing to do with Cope. So now, I'm very excited today. I have my first guest ever on this, whatever this is, talk. So now it's time to introduce her. So this lady is well known in the training and behavior industry and is the owner of Kommetjie Dog Training College near Cape Town. She's also a co-behaviorist and trainer. She's offering puppy classes to advanced classes. She's a member of the CABTI. She used to lecture the advanced diploma in animal behavior. And she is one of the coordinators for the International Companion Animal Network as well. And the list goes on. So, Tarryn, welcome. I'm so thrilled to have you here. And you're, so to speak, my guinea pig for today.
Well, we'll see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes. Tarryn, I'm going to put you on the spot here. At the moment, there's sort of a war going on in the dog training industry. Everybody's against everybody, even in our own communities. You get people that are bad-mouthing other people, and it's just a mess. Can you explain what that is about?
Yeah, I think sometimes I wonder how much all of this impacts general dog owners, and maybe a lot of people are not even aware of it, and it's more those of us who work professionally in the dog training and behavior world that it affects. But it does seem to be something that keeps going on and isn't getting resolved, and I think it is affecting all of us. So yeah, trying to understand it maybe for those people who are not that aware. I think these days the dog training and behavior world tends to fall into two broad camps. One where we're governed by ethics which prescribe that we seek to do no harm to the dogs that we work with. We seek to do no harm to any of the animals, if we're working with other species as well. And that's our first priority, is that we do not want to inflict pain. We do not want to cause fear. We do not want to do anything to the detriment of the welfare of the dogs or the animals that we're working with. And that is really the one sort of group. And then on the other side, there's another group that argues that in order to be successful, in order to be effective in changing behavior or in training, one has to be willing to cause pain and to cause fear. And I think, for many years, we've kind of been carrying on doing our own thing. Those of us in the positive reinforcement-based training community, we've been trying to show through what we do, how we can help dogs and their guardians, why our methods work, how they're based on scientific research, that there's various fields of study which support what we do. And we've kind of, left the other side to do what they're doing, hoping that we can win people over, and especially when dog guardians over, just by the evidence of what we do and how we treat them and their dogs. But over the last couple of years, there's been a bit of a move to, in some of the force-free positive reinforcement-based community, amongst some sort of prominent trainers, there's been a little bit of a move to try and what they call build bridges with the balanced dog training community. And balanced is a little bit of a strange word to use. It basically refers to those who are happy to use aversive tools like shock collars and pinch collars and choke chains, and physical correction, so hurting dogs, causing physical harm to dogs to get them to do what they want. But they're called balanced. They'll call themselves balanced because they will also use rewards as well. So they're saying they're using punishment and they're using rewards, and they would say you need to use both. And so there are some very well-known sort of celebrity dog trainers in the positive reinforcement world who have reached out across this divide to those who are happy to use punishment-based tools and methods, and try to build some sort of bridge, saying we can't be divided, we need to sort of unite and learn from each other and come together. But what it has done is it seems to have emboldened many of the people on the negative side, the side of using punishment and aversive tools. It's emboldened them to be incredibly critical of the positive reinforcement community. It's almost given them a platform to bash the positive reinforcement community. And at the same time, understandably, many people in the positive reinforcement community are feeling incredibly disheartened that it seems their own colleagues, some of their own colleagues who they looked up to, are wanting to join hands with people who think it's okay to hurt dogs. And it's a very confusing time. For myself, I do not understand what I would ever have to learn from somebody who thinks it's okay to cause a dog to yelp in pain to get them to do what you want them to do. It just doesn't make any sense to me why we would want to form any kind of alliance with people who are willing to hurt dogs to get what they want, when we have shown over and over again that it's not necessary. It's just muddying the waters, it's confusing everybody, and it's giving that balanced community grounds to really go after positive reinforcement trainers and give us a very hard time. So there's a lot of, so there's understandable, there's always been this sort of divide between the balanced community who uses punishment and the positive reinforcement community who avoids using punishment. But now, because some people from the positive reinforcement community have tried to sort of build these supposed bridges with the balanced community, there's now this divide in the positive reinforcement community ourselves, which is making life quite complicated.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is I'm busy testing all these tools. I've got a prong collar here. So for me, it's a matter of ethics in the first place. Do I want to hurt my own dogs? Why would I? Why can't I use this on my children if I can use them on my dogs? And the other thing is, upon the fallout of these devices, there must surely be must create fear or something. What's your opinion?
Well, definitely. I mean, I think if we understand how learning takes place, we know that if you're using positive reinforcement, you are actually increasing activity in certain neural pathways in the brain, which make the behavior you want more likely to happen again. We know, on the other hand, when you're using punishment just causes a general inhibition in the brain. So basically, the body and the brain goes into survival mode, there's something bad happening to me, I'm getting hurt, or I am fearful, and therefore I'm going to stop anything. I'm going to stop doing anything, and either just shut down and do nothing, or the body gets primed to go into a survival response, which we know is like fight or flight, or sometimes what people mistake for even friendliness is fiddle about. So appeasement kind of behavior. So we know that when that survival system in the brain is activated, you are causing the elevation of hormones, stress hormones like cortisol. You're causing spikes in adrenaline. You are causing stress on the body. You're causing stress on the brain. And you are creating negative emotions. And those things, when they keep being applied, will actually not only affect the mental health of the animal, the emotional health of the animal by making them feel bad in the moment, but it is actually also going to lead to health issues long term, because we know that stress is a cause of so much illness. When the body is in survival mode, when the body is in fight or flight mode, having to deal with constant feelings of fear and anxiety, or trying to avoid pain, the body's resources are directed towards survival and are taken away from things like maintaining normal bodily functions and keeping the immune system healthy. So the long-term consequences of using punishment on animals is not only that you're going to have a dog that is generally anxious and fearful and maybe depressed, or really frustrated, and your relationship with that animal is going to start breaking down because they're feeling bad all the time, and plus they start anticipating all this unpleasantness with you. So not only does it have all that emotional fallout and that relational fallout between you and your dog, but you're also actually having an impact on their health and well-being. You are actually going to cause your animal to become ill in the long term. And I don't say that lightly. I know people say, well, that's ridiculous. It's not ridiculous. We know from humans, if you are in a stressful situation at work all the time where you are completely overwhelmed, you are constantly anxious, you are constantly worried about what's going on, you will become sick one way or another. Your immune system will go down. Long term, it's not good. Yeah, and, so this is what's happening in the animal world, but, people like to pretend that it doesn't matter, that these things don't happen, that there's no fallout, or maybe it's not so much that they like to pretend, it's just that they don't know. Definitely. I think there's a lot of willful ignorance. There's a lot of, well, it seems to work in the moment, it seems to be working for me right now. I'm not going to think about the long-term consequences. And if anybody tries to point me to what those long-term consequences are, I'm not interested. I don't want to know because it's inconvenient.
100%. Question, have you ever used one of these things?
So I have not used a shock collar, but I have used a prong collar. So, I mean, my dog training journey is a long one. I first got involved in dog training when I was 19, and I found a dog, a puppy that had been abandoned, and I ended up having to try and find somewhere to train him. I was told at the time that he was a extremely dominant dog who needed a level 10 correction because he was so sort of strong-willed and was basically a difficult dog. And at the time, we weren't allowed, in the classes that I went to, we weren't allowed to use food. I was, a young woman. I was in a situation where there were much older men who were telling me what to do, and I didn't know any better. And, struggling with this, eventually they slapped a pinch collar on my dog. And so, yes, I, had a pinch collar on him at times because that was what I was told to do. So I have got it somewhere in the garage still where I bring it out to show people what it is. And it's, yeah, so I have used one. Honestly, it didn't work in the way that it was supposed to. It certainly didn't solve any of the problems that I had with my dog at the time.
Yeah.
And I was fairly good at following instructions, so I did what they told me to do. But it really didn't solve the problems that I had. The problems that I had with him was that he actually hated training because training was miserable because of the way they trained. And actually, thank goodness, after a couple of years, I was introduced to positive reinforcement dog training, and I changed, and we started doing clicker training with food with him. He became a different dog. He suddenly enjoyed training, and I was able to teach him all sorts of things that I hadn't been able to teach him before. So, yeah, I have experience, and I've seen many other people with these devices. Not so much these days, thank goodness. In South Africa, we don't have a lot of it these days. And I have experience working as a behaviorist with dogs that have had shock collars used on them in the past. I've seen some tragic cases. The one dog had to be euthanized because the dog had been so terribly traumatized by the use of a shock collar that the dog couldn't function properly. It was one of the saddest things I have ever seen. And unfortunately, the situation that the dog was around children, and the dog was so unpredictable and dangerous because of the past use of the shock collar that the owners made a decision to euthanize the dog. So, yeah, I've seen some tragic things as a result of shock collars.
Knowing what you know now, will you ever use the stuff again?
No. There's no reason to. There's absolutely no reason to.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, another interesting question that somebody asked me the other day is dominance theory. Do you think there's any space for dominance theories in today's training world or behavior modification world? Dominance referring to things like alpha roles, and you must show you're the pack leader, and you must do this and you must do that. The dog must be the bottom of the pack in your house and all that sort of thing. Is there any place in today's world for that sort of thing?
No, I think we have moved past that. I mean, we know that, originally dominance theory in the dog training world came from the idea that dogs are descended from wolves, that wolves have this sort of pack structure where they're fighting or they're vying for dominance all the time, that when the dominant wolf gets older, it gets chucked out by a younger one, and that it's a constant sort of conflict to establish this hierarchy in wolf packs. And we know from the very people who studied wolves that is not the case. So we know far more these days. So David Mech, who actually was one of the most prominent people who studied wolves for decades. I mean, he I think came up with the word alpha at some point, and he says he wished he had never said anything like that because it's not an accurate representation, actually, in people's minds. What people have equated that to, it doesn't actually equate to what we understand or the popular perception of dominance. So the way wolf packs in reality are, according to him and other people who have studied wolves, is that they are family units. So a pack is literally just parents and their offspring. And what happens in that family unit is the parents are obviously automatically in charge, in a sense, in the fact that they are responsible for the welfare of their offspring. So they will look after their offspring. They have these offspring, and then they will obviously hunt for them, and they will protect them, and they will look after them. They're a family unit. And as these youngsters grow up, two things either happen. Either they stay sort of fairly juvenile in the family group, and they don't, so the females would not come into season, the males would not be mating, and they almost repress that sort of sexual mature behavior, and they stay part of this family group as they mature, or they don't and they leave. So if they are in a position where they are wanting to find a mate and they are going to reproduce, they leave the family unit, they go out and they find a mate from somewhere else. So you get these dispersing wolves that leave their family unit. They form a new family unit with another wolf. And you can understand, obviously, from a genetic point of view, you don't want siblings in the wolf family unit mating with each other and producing more offspring, because you're now getting a closed genetic pool. So for the species to survive, it makes sense that those that are going to reproduce, a youngster that's going to reproduce leaves, finds an unrelated young, another wolf that's also in the same position, that they form their new family unit with. So this whole idea that there's this vying for position constantly in this family unit it doesn't happen. It's not what actually happens. So people try to kind of take this artificial idea of this constant conflict in wolf packs, which doesn't actually exist, and they try to apply it to dogs in our homes and say, well, we need to then be the dominant sort of wolf. We need to be the dominant dog, and our young dogs need to know where they stand. They need to be the bottom of the pile, essentially. But again, that's not an accurate representation of what actually happens in the wild with wolf packs. But despite that, I mean, regardless of that, dogs aren't wolves. We know they've evolved to not be predators anymore. They are mainly scavengers. They have evolved to have a close affinity to human beings, which wolves do not have. So their social behavior even has changed. They don't mature in the same way that wolves mature. They stay juvenilized their whole lives and totally dependent on us. So I do think it's accurate to say we are in a position almost of being parents of our dogs. They would tend to respond to us as though we are their parents. But as their parents, our job is not to dominate them. Our job is to protect them and look after them and provide for their needs.
Absolutely.
And an automatic response to that is that they are going to trust us and they are going to follow us because we are their safe place, we are their safe haven, and we provide for everything that they need. It would be the same as saying that in a parent-child relationship that a parent must prove that they are dominant over their children. Well, I mean, it's ridiculous. The parents are going out and working, the parents are earning the money, the parents are supplying everything that the child needs. And it's the same with us, with our dogs. We pretty much control everything anyway. I mean, realistically, we control what our dogs eat, we control where they go, we control most of what they're able to do. We do not need to try and lord this kind of dominance over them. It makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree.
What we want is for them to trust us completely, to feel safe with us, because that's where they're going to kind of follow our lead in situations and feel comfortable in situations and be willing to work with us, be willing to respond to us, because there's that bond of trust. And doing things like supposed alpha roles, I mean, all that's doing is basically you're attacking your dog, and you don't attack a family member.
No.
Hopefully we don't attack anybody. We don't want to attack anybody, but you specifically don't attack your family members. And when you try and alpha roll a dog, you're basically, in the dog's mind, it's like you're trying to kill them.
Yeah.
And all you're doing is breaking a relationship. teaching them that you are the enemy, in fact, that you're a threat to their survival. Nothing good comes from things like that.